What? You know what? Just to be safe. Thing you did end up saving your ass later? Not my ass, but my mom's. She and I were home alone and I was getting ready to go to a party. I came upstairs and found her with the carbon monoxide detector in pieces on the coffee table. She said it was beeping, and apparently once years ago in our last house one was malfunctioning and giving a false alarm, so I guess she just assumed it was happening again. I shrugged it off and continued getting ready. I was about to leave but something was nagging at me. She was insisting it was fine. After some arguing with her I said, "No. We are calling the fire department." So I did. They came, and the levels of carbon monoxide were so high in the basement they said anyone sleeping down there would be dead already. Our cats were vomiting from the poisoning and we didn't realize. I guess the filter on the furnace was so clogged it was pumping out carbon monoxide. One of the firefighters pulled me aside and said if I hadn't called I likely would have come home to my mom dead in her bed. Me and my siblings almost never were. One night before we were born, obviously, my mom complained that the furnace wasn't working cause it was too cold. My dad went into the basement to check it out. After a few min my mom went to see why he wasn't back. He had passed out in the basement, and she ended up passing out in the basement. Somehow my dad regained consciousness and pulled my mom back upstairs. Turns out a raccoon had built a nest in the furnace vent, and the basement had been filling up with carbon monoxide. Edit. This was back in the mid-late 70s. Edit 2. This was in southern Indiana. So it gets pretty cold, but not insanely cold. Edit 3. They had a wood-burning furnace, wood-burning stove. It was before my time, so all I know is it required wood for burning. Wow, thank God he woke back up. Nothing short of a miracle there. That's some terrifying stuff. Carbon monoxide detectors are so ubiquitous now that it's easy to forget just how critical a service they provide. You say that, but I've definitely been in houses without one. Hell, I didn't have one until about 2018. We always had fire extinguishers and regular smoke alarms, but for some reason we just never had a CO alarm until right about when I bought a CO2 alarm to point out how bad our indoor air quality already was. Not my ass, but I was getting ready for school whilst Mum was vomiting in the bathroom. She said it was just a stomach bug and to just go to school but mentioned her arm hurt. Something didn't sit right so I called the ambulance from downstairs. They arrived and took her into the ambulance. She then proceeded to have 3 cardiac arrests and needed defibrillated each time. A double bypass later and she was up and about within a month. Paramedics told me she would have died 5 minutes after I left, if I hadn't called. You saved your mom. Smart listening to your intuition. Had some weird achy symptoms and went to the doctor even though I figured I was probably overreacting. Turns out I had cancer. I had a friend who died of cancer aged 40. Whenever I feel embarrassed or that I'm overreacting about a possible issue, I imagine how much she would yell at me for not getting something checked out for a stupid reason. Please, people out there, if you ever feel silly about going to the doctor, remember that Jess would yell at you to get out there and get it looked at, because she doesn't want you to go through what she went through, just because you were embarrassed. She wants you to live. Tell Jess that I, a 33-year-old man, had to go to the breast clinic recently and I held my head high as I had my boob checked. Turns out the lump is due to my meds and it's benign tissue, but it is tender when I hit it. Great job for getting it checked. She would be cheering you on. I'll never forget the first time I realized men could have breast cancer too. I was a child watching a soap opera, telenovela, and one of the male characters had breast cancer and was operated. Representation really matters. Good for you on getting checked out. My problem is I'm almost always aching somewhere. I am a bit of a hypochondriac, so I hate reading people saying, minor symptom, became cancer lol. Seriously. I read this thread and now I definitely have leukemia, lung cancer, and probably at least 3 other types. Putting only one of my work shoes in the hotel safe along with my valuables literally has stopped me in my tracks from forgetting my wallet and passport in a Different country. Was delivering pizza in a sketchy block of town late at night. Huge apartment complex with multiple buildings. Walking up to the front door, I noticed a couple guys wearing dark clothing about 100 feet behind me walking in my direction. Delivery was on the second floor, and by the time I reached her door I heard the main door of the apartment complex open and close. She used a CC for the order and tipped in cash, so when I was putting the receipt into my bag, where I kept my cash, I actually pulled the rest of the cash out and stuffed it into my inner jacket pocket just to be safe, leaving just the change I had that night in the bag. Started to head down the stairs back out to my car, and two guys jumped out from behind the stairs, and the one had a gun, pointed at me and told me to give them the money. I quickly handed them my bag filled with quarters, and they took off towards the back entrance of the apartment complex. I never ran so fast in my life back to my car. I wanted to make sure I was as far away as possible before they realized the robbed me of $3.50 in quarters. I used to be a shift manager at a pizza place, and I refused to send my drivers to certain areas at dusk, night because of this. I'm just glad you made it out safely. I used to live in one of those areas and always hated not being able to get delivery after dark, but partially understood why. That changed to full understanding when someone did a drive-by on the building on the other side of the street from me one night. Same, minus the drive-by. I have lived somewhere that drive-bys happened, but I never tried to order food there. The Chinese place used to make an exception for us despite not delivering to our block because my mom had been going there for so long, and we tip well. $5 breakage insurance on a rental surfboard. Broke that fucker clean in half in my first 10 minutes. I wonder if it was a ploy by the rental business, knowing their boards were liable to break and therefore make more money on customers without insurance. I would dare say the money made from people using and returning the board in the same condition whilst paying the $5 for ease of mind would outweigh the insurance claim when they can just pay $300, or whatever price surfboards are, to replace the one that will inevitably break over time. My friend and his wife were having their first child. They had gotten a big packet of information and paperwork to fill out before the due date to make things easier. There were also brochures for genetic testing and other things that could be done, and one of the things was about saving the cord blood. My friend said that he looked at the front of the brochure and his wife asked if they should do it. It is not cheap, a couple $1,000 to save it and a few $100 a year after that, and my friend said, yes. Their daughter was born later that year. 3 years after her birth, they had a boy, and he was born with an immune disorder, no white cells, and his big sister's cord blood and stem cells were used as a treatment. Friend of mine started a cord blood bank about 25 years ago. The phrase, filthy rich, doesn't even begin to describe them. Would the phrase, bloody rich, be more apt then? Edit. Thanks for the award. Lived in Baltimore at the time. Pulled up outside my place after getting off a late shift and had to get a backpack out of my trunk before going in. I noticed a group of teenaged kids hanging out on the corner and thought, nope. Called my roommate to come watch me walk to the door. About 10 minutes later, a girl comes running down the street bleeding, saying she got jumped by the group of kids for no reason. Stay alert out there, y'all. I was in a similar situation a few years ago and I decided to ignore my gut. And you know what happened? I got jumped and mugged. If something feels off, there's a good chance it is. Everybody should read The Gift of Fear. It's sometimes hard to listen to that gut feeling, because we feel the need to stay polite and unfazed in public, even when our gut is telling us to run away. This book helped me legitimize that gut feeling. Edit. It's written by Gavin de Becker. Thank you, you, Hallman girl. My dad lost his glasses once. He was going to just use his old prescription but last minute decided to just go to the optometrist anyway in case something changed. Turns out he had a tear in his retina and was booked for surgery within 24 hours. It was bad enough they said he probably would have gone blind really soon had they not caught it when then did. Was watching my toddler nephew and he'd found a metal straw somewhere in the house and started playing with it. He was just tapping stuff and waving it around, but I just read a story on Reddit about a woman who got completely fucked up by a metal straw when she fell and it impaled her face, so I took the metal one from nephew and gave him a soft, squishy silicone one to play with instead. I'm not exaggerating when I say less than 5 minutes later, he fell. Like toddlers do, and I saw the silicone straw all smushed into his cheek. I had to just sit for a while after that, lol. I have an irrational fear of getting stabbed in the eye with a straw. I'm cautious with fast food straws in the car. Whoever invented the steel straws is a psychopath. I spent $25 on a set of silicone straws and I use them every day without fear. Closing parenthesis. Fuck, I've been using glass straws like an idiot. Imagine one of those breaking in your mouth. Ain't no way.